Economist Sir Frank Allen has suggested that Barbadians need to be more circumspect when it comes to comments from the opposition, claiming that the economies of some regional neighbors will grow while Barbados will languish. He was speaking at a Democratic Labour Party branch meeting in St. Michael North West last evening. Dr. Allen referred to a study from the Inter-American Development Bank dubbed the selectiveness of selected CARICOM countries, findings of the Global Competitiveness Index. Dale Ford reports.
The report says Guyana, Suriname and Trinidad and Tobago are on economic development levels 1, 2 and 3 respectively, with 1 being the lowest and 3 being the highest. While Jamaica is transitioning from level 1 to 2, Barbados is moving from 2 to 3. Sir Frank told the DLP supporters not to be taken in by the one-sided claims of the Barbados Labour Party.
Yeah, in a group, but that mean you're the same as the group. You could be in a minibus, but that mean you are the same level of intelligence or tolerance of all the other people inside there. But you have to draw this, you have to tell people, like, you don't compare apples and oranges. You have to compare like with like. Because you're in CARICOM, that means you're in the same boat. That all you're in the same boat, same level. And this study is a very well done study. And what it says, in very clear terms, the factors driving their competitiveness are quite different on these specific economies.
Meanwhile, Finance Minister Chris Sinclair isn't troubled by the opposition's petition to remove him from office. Speaking at the same meeting, he said the Barbados Labour Party wants to destabilize the country and undermine the economy.
We have very clear rules and procedures for the appointment and the disappointment or unappointment of ministers under the Constitution of Barbados. And the petition don't do that. Not SOS or SES or MOT, TS can get rid of the minister in Barbados. The Prime Minister appoints them and the Prime Minister can disappoint them. And so this is just an exercise in futility. But I want you to understand what is really going on. That petition only has my name on it, but they really want to bring down the government.
Dale Ford, CBC News.
Meanwhile, the opposition has sounded a warning to the government ahead of its planned no-confidence motion against Finance Minister Chris Sinclair, which they're pushing for debate in Parliament tomorrow. Opposition leader Mia Motley not only says there will be no turning back on the motion, she's hinted that if government fails to act, the opposition is prepared to take similar action on the Friendle-Stewart administration. Her comments came as she and other members of the BLP launched an all-out verbal attack on the Finance Minister. Shane Seeley has the story.
Speaker after speaker after speaker blasted the Finance Minister Chris Sinclair as the opposition put forward its case for Barbadians to sign a petition backing the no-confidence motion against him. It culminated in a speech from the Barbados Labour Party leader Mia Motley. Ms. Motley says there will be no turning back now, and she had this message for Prime Minister Friendle-Stewart and his administration.
Friendle-Stewart and the Cabinet will learn about the illegalities, will learn about the lack of confidence, will learn about the confessions, will learn about the dismal performance of every aspect of this economy. And if they choose to hold up Chris as opposed to the country, then the future will have to be settled not against Chris, but against the Democratic Labour Party government.
St. James Central MP Kerry Simmons, the leader of opposition business in Parliament, says the process for bringing the motion to the lower house is moving ahead as planned.
I have, in my capacity as he who has been asked to lead the opposition's business in Parliament, written to the Speaker to request that that debate be telecast live. And I have done so because it is important for you not only to sign the dotted line this evening, as you're doing, as I understand it, in thousands, but you must also be able to look into the lens of the camera.
So tomorrow, the focus switches to Parliament to see whether or not the motion will come up for debate. Shane Seeley, CBC News.
News of the death of 2-year-old Tazari Mohan of Sweetville, St. George, who was tragically burnt to death during a house fire in Elmsford, New York, has left the Aline and Mahan family here in Barbados devastated. CBC News spoke with his grandmother, Melanie's Aline, who stressed that the family was still in shock, trying to come to terms with the news. Officials say the boy and his mother were visiting from Barbados when the fire erupted in the two-story home around 10 on Saturday night.
Well, it's hard. It's hard. I'm trying to cope because that's my first grandchild. And I'm just trying to cope. Tanisha blaming herself for his death, but I tell her don't blame because she was trying to get him. And she just could not get him. It was too much smoke for her. Well, I have to wait. She's in hospital right now in Westchester Medical Center. So we're just waiting because she's going to be in New York for a while. So when she's released, then my grandson will be back home to Barbados to be buried.
Reports are that Tazari's mother, 26-year-old Tanisha Ali Mahan, suffered second-degree burns in the incident. 3 other adults were also injured. Acting Police Commissioner Tyrone Griffith is pledging to do all in his power to stamp out corruption within the force. He's also called on so-called corrupt police officers to resign. Shane Seeley has more.
The strong statement came in the acting commissioner's address to the police awards ceremony held yesterday at Solidarity House. There he called on awardees and other senior police officers to take action against corrupt lawmen and bring them to justice.
It is also your responsibility to do all in your power to eradicate those small pockets of persons whose conduct has been unethical and sometimes downright corrupt. I know those persons, you know those persons, and they know who they are. They should do the right thing and bow. I will be doing all in my power to rid the organization of them. You too need to do all in your power to assist in ridding the force of them.
Commissioner Griffith also addressed the recent surge in gun-related crime in Barbados. He says the police are on top of the situation.
We have had to grapple with the apparent spike in gun-related crime. I'm happy to say that we have been quite successful through the hard work of our men and women, coupled with a strong reliance on intelligence-led initiatives. I need to thank many of my officers, especially those at the CID, who have been going beyond the call.
Now, the award ceremony also paid tribute to 2 colleagues who passed away over the weekend. We learned too that 5 police officers have died in the last 4 months. Commissioner Griffith says a greater focus will now have to be placed on the health and wellness of officers. This, he says, will become a priority. Shane Seeley, CBC News.
And on the heels of those 2 police officers dying within the space of 48 hours over the weekend, Attorney General Adriel Brathwaite said it's critically important that outstanding lawmen be recognized for their contribution in keeping Barbados safe. Mr. Brathwaite was also at the time addressing the police awards ceremony hosted at Solidarity House. The Home Affairs Minister, who himself is mourning the death of his 15-year-old son, told lawmen that the efforts of the force to safeguard the society and our shores should not go without reward.
Let the death of your colleagues signal to you that as an organization that we must celebrate while we can. We will not always agree, but as a whole, this country depends on us to make it the paradise that it is.
Police are probing a suspected robbery of a local attorney-at-law over the weekend. CBC understands that the lawyer was attacked by an unknown assailant who reportedly wielded a cutlass during the robbery attempt. The lawyer sustained injuries to her head, which required several stitches, her left wrist, and her right hand. CBC understands she's been treated for her injuries. Over 1,800 students graduated from the University of the West Indies Cavell campus over the weekend. 343 of them are postgraduates. Almost 1,500 of them were first degrees, 154 were first-class honors, and 3 were honors in medicine. While lauding the University of the West Indies for its consistent academic achievements, Chancellor of the University of the West Indies Cavell campus, Professor Sir George Aline, does not believe that institution as a regional body has done enough for human rights in the Caribbean. Dale Ford has more.
During his presentation at the K-Phil campus's graduation over the weekend, Sir George said while the institution has a laudable track record academically, it has not developed a culture of advocacy for human rights. He spoke specifically of lesbians, gays, bisexuals and transgender persons and noted that only 11 Caribbean countries in the Western Hemisphere criminalize consensual homosexual sex. He offered his support to members of the law faculty who are moving to bring awareness to the plight of this group. Sir George said the current legislation lends to stigma and discrimination and makes it difficult to manage and control the spread of HIV/AIDS.
These are a reflection of the Savings Law Clause, which, as written and understood, insulates laws which were in existence at the time of independence, insulates them from constitutional challenge. We should note that there are relics of Britain's laws from 1876, and Britain has long repealed such laws. Of course, Parliament, if so inclined, could amend or repeal these laws. However, given the difficulty of parliamentary action, the only recourse for change is through litigation.
Meanwhile, Sir Keith Hunt, who received an honorary Doctor of Laws, called on the graduates to move CARICOM forward.
You are a member of integration, the university. A number of people have predicted that it wouldn't last, it would break up. You have a duty to see that in your lifetime, that is a remote possibility. The university belongs to you and to your heirs and successors. So does the regional community in the making.
Dale Ford for CBC News.
Everyday teachers are faced with the task of being a great impact on their students. Chief Judge and Principal of the Graydon City School, Matthew Farley, made this comment at the Royal Fidelity National Distinguished Teachers Awards. Mr. Farley also outlined the daily investment of teachers.
Every day, every child, even the most disruptive, comes to school with an unlit candle, holding it out for the teacher to light it. And that the task of every teacher, every day of his life, is to make sure that no child goes back home without that candle being well lit. That's the task of a teacher.
Minister of Education, Science and Technology Ronald Jones believes the 10 awardees must be great teachers to be given this prestigious award. He also said teachers are facing even more challenges to transfer their knowledge in the classroom.
The teaching profession in Barbados sits at a critical intersection. The changing student, more assertive, some might argue a little more, some a little more indisciplined. Of course, that is a search for themselves as well. We have a more dynamic society. Teachers are questioned a lot more. They have to justify their being in the world of education. They have to justify their being in the world. There's the reinterpretation of values. What was then might not necessarily what is now.
The Caribbean is still the #1 destination for cruise liners. This from Executive Consultant Cruise Lines International Association, Robert Chirac. He was speaking at the Cruise Alliance of the Southern Caribbean meeting now on at the Hilton Hotel. Caribbean members joined together with the hope of signing a memorandum of understanding. This will ensure that resources are pooled by Caribbean member states so the Cruise Alliance product can be launched. During the meeting, Minister of Tourism and International Transport Richard Seeley said it was his hope that a good tourism product can be offered to cruisers through the Cruise Alliance. He also says that he would like to see career opportunities provided for citizens by this new product of the cruise industry.
Career possibilities for our citizens on board the cruise vessels and not necessarily in the line jobs as hewers of wood and drawers of water, but also getting into management opportunities. The young cadets from the region should start to be able to chart career paths in the cruise industry. The cruise industry has benefited tremendously from the Caribbean region, and I think the Caribbean people should also get some benefit from a career point of view in the cruise industry.
Executive Consultant Cruise Lines International Association Robert Chirac alluded to the survey carried out on passengers, which suggested they valued the worth of the Caribbean cruise packages.
Again, this is consumers talking at this point in time. Earlier we talked about the deployment where the cruises are being deployed. The Caribbean ranks #1. when you ask the consumer where they want to go on a cruise, the Caribbean still is the #1 slot.
The Queen Elizabeth Hospital wants to introduce a paid car park system for the public. According to Director of Engineering Services at the hospital, Paula Abau, some issues related to a section of land close to the hospital have to be resolved.
And we do have a plan in place and drawn up for a section of the car park area for paid parking. However, we are in the process of finalizing with Town and Country Planning and with the various ministries as to ownership before we go ahead and we build on that particular lot of land.
She says once that situation is rectified, parking can be adequately addressed.
The majority of the land belongs to the Crown, and parts of the areas where we are currently using as parking, quote-unquote parking, may not necessarily belong, strictly speaking, to the hospital. So we're trying to work out those logistics and the legalities and so on, but we do have a plan in place once we get all that sorted out to introduce paid parking.
Restoration of the public library building at Corey Street will be discussed in Parliament. This from Minister of Culture, Sports and Youth, Stephen Lashley. He was speaking at the 166th anniversary of the National Library Service Readathon. Minister Lashley says the library has contributed to the socio-cultural growth of the island and that such structures need maintenance.
Let me assure you this morning that the Cabinet of Barbados, on the recommendation of the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Youth, has put in place for over a year now a task force for the restoration and preservation of historic buildings, and the Carnegie Building, which is the home of the main branch library and the headquarters of the National Library Service, is being given very high priority.
Minister Lashley praised the library service for making the technological adjustments in education. He says the library offers an all-inclusive package that stores both historical and cultural artifacts.
The National Library Service stands ready to meet these challenges in order to remain relevant to its community. The library is committed to the offer of new services in the form of new technologies to retain the interests of its patrons in general, and in particular its younger patrons, by incorporating these new technologies into the library experience.
Barbados needs to have a national dress. That's the view of Barbados' ambassador to CARICOM, Robert Morris. Speaking during the CARICOM 40th anniversary service, Ambassador Morris said the dress will form part of the country's identity regionally.
One call, seeing the overwhelming beauty of the array, and forgive me if I'm being particular here, to the team from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They're overwhelming. And I make the call for a Barbadian costume that we can be identified with. I'm just echoing a call that I saw in my parliament, I heard in my parliament. And I made a second call. We need to hurry up and get that CARICOM song. That song is important to our identity. Let our creative artists go to work. I want my song, and I want it as soon as possible.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, Senator Maxine McLean, noted that the region has remained integrated despite its numerous challenges. However, she believes that integration could be further strengthened if the region capitalized on its greatest resources, its finances and its people.
I therefore challenge not only the regional political directorate, but more importantly, the people and the private sector to demonstrate that we can build on the two important foundational elements of our community, our youth and our financial resources, to create and expand the region's wealth.